And up next is Aisha Rashid, who is an oceanographer, marine biologist, and a Rolex Explorers Club grantee. Her research focuses on whales. She's worked with the Sea Dock Society, the Alaska Whale Foundation, and the Center for Whale Research, always looking for ways to connect science with action. On top of that, she's the science director for Grammy-nominated hip-hop artists' climate nonprofit, the Earth Gang Foundation. Aisha also runs at Aisha by the Ocean, a digital field journal that brings marine science straight to our feeds, and she's part of the Future Swell Ocean Creator Coalition. Please welcome, or join me in giving Aisha a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Rolex and the Explorers Club for enabling me to take part in this fieldwork. I'm a scientist, and I am visiting from Washington State, where I do this work. And this work is done under a federally protected research permit and under the Sea Dock Society. So without further ado, I'm sharing the story of the southern resident killer whales. And this is a female right in the center. So to get started, the common ancestor of all whales actually originated on land. And that is called the Pachycetus, and it roamed an ocean because it found opportunities, whether there were more predators on land or more food in the ocean. It ended up spending more and more time in the water. And over time, we see the loss of limbs, the migration of the blowhole, and a development of a very smart brain. So this evolution happened in what was called the Tethys Sea. In this part of the world is when Asia was colliding with the Europe plate. This is the Tethys Sea right here. And so I actually share ancestry with these ancestors of whales. My family comes from the Indian and Pakistan regions, and I'm really honored to have the original mountaineers and explorers of my life sitting in the audience with me. But the sediment that made up the Tethys Sea is later formed into the Karakoram mountain range we see here. So fast forward a million years after the evolution of cetaceans, I graduated college from the University of Washington in June of 2024, and I focused my studies on marine sciences. I focused on this population of killer whales in Washington State, as well as submarine volcanism in American Samoa. But I'm very excited by the intersection between remote sensing and cetaceans. So our story takes place on the West Coast, and specifically in the inland waters of Washington State, called the Salish Sea. And this territory, the 2006 designation of the inland waters of the Salish Sea, is instrumental to this story. But the southern residents occupy this large portion of the West Coast, which most West Coasters don't know about. So who are these whales? These whales are truly cherished and iconic. And this is the only place in the United States where you can see a massive group of killer whales traveling together. There are actually 75 as of last week. A new baby was born, but this population was listed in the Endangered Species Act in 2005 because they were largely targeted for the capture era. These are salmon-eating killer whales, and because of that, we see them traveling in large family groups. We have 3 pods in the southern residents, J, K, and L pod, and when they're traveling together, they all speak a common language, but between pods, they have a unique dialect. And these pods, you're traveling with your mother, your grandmother, your siblings, your cousins, your aunts and uncles, and that is truly the magic of the southern residents. So here is video footage from just last week, actually, of J-Pod traveling on the west side of San Juan Island, which is an island group in Washington State, about 2 hours north of Seattle. But there are large groups of people that work to see these whales from land. We are so lucky and able to study them because they exist so close and in our inland waters. So for our research, monitoring the health of this endangered population, we have to look at what's coming out of the whale. So this is researcher Dr. Deborah Giles, an amazing mentor of mine and the director of this program. And I'd like to introduce a special coworker. This is Eva, and she's the 5th scent detection dog in our research program at the Sea Dock Society, and she's a rescue. And she is trained to sniff out killer whale poop from the bow of our research vessel. we do that? When whales are in the region, there's a network of sensors called hydrophones that pick up acoustic noise, so we are notified when whales are entering or leaving the inland waters of the Salish Sea. And also visual observations are very important. So when they're there, we try and orient our boat at a 90-degree angle perpendicular to the whale's path, so that Eva can try and pick up the scent cone of floating killer whale feces, which float for about 30 minutes. So Eva will change her body language when she's on a scent. And the dog handler right there is Jim Rappold, an amazing colleague of mine. But when he notices that Eva's changing behavior, he communicates with the boat driver, and we get closer and closer to that floating fecal sample. But Giles always says it's like a needle in a haystack, except the needle's moving, the haystack's moving, and so are you. So this is what killer whale feces, southern resident poop, looks like. And these are huge samples, so we are really happy if you're finding a sample this large. But sometimes we're finding a sample that is just that size. And having samples is never guaranteed. Some days you walk away with 7 samples, and some days you walk away with 0. So after we scoop the poop on board, we have little beakers and a pole that we scoop it out of the water. We process it in our laboratory at the back of the vessel. So that's Giles processing some fecal samples, and I'm plating some of those samples so we can do further analyses on them. We have an incredible opportunity to partner with the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance and expand some research methods. So because of this endangered status for this population, non-invasive research methods are very important. And so this right here is a snotbot collector. So it's a drone that is collecting the breath of these killer whales. And we hope to answer questions on genetics about this growing population, because we have an existing bank for our old members, but as the population grows, we'd like to keep up with that. So here I have some mucus, some feces in a tube, and an amazing scientist, Hendrik, at the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. So what are the feces telling us? We are looking at hormones, we're looking at toxins, we're looking at pollutants, we're looking at gut microbiome. But for this purpose of this talk, I wanted to talk about reproductive health. Southern residents face a 69.8% failed pregnancy rate associated with malnutrition. Because they are salmon eaters, they are struggling to have successful pregnancy rates at higher rates compared to other populations. And we know this from their feces. We also know, what does that look like visually for a killer whale? These are incredibly intelligent creatures. They are a matriarchal society. So 120-year-old, up to 120-year-old females are ruling this society. But to have 6 miscarriages before you have a baby is a huge, huge issue. And in fact, when babies are born, they are once again faced with high mortality rates. This is again a video from September of a mother carrying her dead baby. And this has made headline news around the world many times, but it is becoming increased in frequency, and it is heartbreaking every time. It is not right, and it is in our control. This issue is particularly tied to Pacific salmon, their main prey source, which relates to you because Pacific salmon is important to humanity thanks to shipping globally. People around the world enjoy this delicacy, and it's up to consumers to demand for the accurate policy measures to go into ensuring that this is a sustainable food source for both us and the whales. So out in Washington State, 10 of the 16 salmon populations that are struggling come from one river. That's the Columbia River. And but there are dams on the Snake River that cause an exacerbated effect on these 10 salmon species. And so calling for dam removal is a huge action point to save these whales. And that's something you can all get involved in. So I actually have a free sticker and action item, some homework for you all, to call your elected officials to get involved in protecting killer whales and marine mammals around the country. The Marine Mammal Protection Act is currently under threat, and so we had a lot of grassroots organizing this summer to protect it and act on it. So looking forward, the past 5 years almost spending time in Washington has armed me with an amazing skill set that I hope to bring back to where my family comes from, off of the coast of Pakistan, where another anomalous population, an iconic population of humpback whales exists. The only population of humpback whales in the world that doesn't migrate. And yet there is virtually no research conducted on this population and a very huge lack of ocean science investments in the region in general. So that's where I hope to be. Me and my family are planning to trek to K2, the second tallest mountain in the world, and I am considering that my Pachycetus pilgrimage. But I'm really excited to help bring the skills that I've developed in Washington State to a new place. So thank you so much to so many different people, the Sea Dock Society, Dr. Deborah Giles, Dr. Joe Gatos, Jim Rappold, and of course Eva, our whale poop sniffing dog. And thank you so much to Rolex and the Explorers Club for funding me and my ability to be in the field and participating in this research. Please reach me by email, and I'm happy to answer all of the whale questions. I've never given it in just 8 minutes, so I have a lot of information for you. But as Grace mentioned earlier, I also run an Instagram blog called Aisha by the Ocean, where I post lots of photos of Eva. So yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, we have time for a question. One audience question? Yes.
Have you been examining the samples for plastic at all?
Yeah, so that is part of the work that NOAA is doing, but it takes a lot of sample to look at microplastics because you have to dry it down and then you have something eating away all the organic matter. So then you lose that sample completely for all of the hormone analysis and health analyses. But yeah, NOAA is doing some of that research. So there's a lot of people involved. This is the most well-studied population of killer whales in the world because of its accessibility. And so, yes, there are people studying those microplastics, but I don't think we have those results yet.
Thank you so much.